There's a piece by David Foster Wallace, the American writer, that talks about teaching Kafka. I'm gonna link it down in the description. And the ending bit always sticks with me. As a teacher who teaches the Metamorphosis and is interested in Kafka as a writer and sort of a teaching point on what it means to write with your own flavor enough to even get your own name in the Kafkaesque. I'm always looking for ways to learn from myself, from other students, from other teachers about Kafka's work, especially when it relates to the Metamorphosis. In the piece by David Foster Wallace, he talks about teaching Kafka to college kids and how they don't think he's very funny, which is ironic because then I use it to teach. But nevertheless, he ends the piece talking about the real tragedy in Kafka's works. These are all his words, not mine. You should read it down below. But he says something along the lines of, imagine trying to walk through a door. You need to get through the door. And when I'm teaching, I actively act like I need to get out the door. I need what's on the other side. Only to realize that the door is opening from the outside in and you've been in the room you wanted to be in all along. One, what a cool image for David Foster Wallace, and I totally think he captures something that Kafka is on about beautifully. And that's sort of what I want to talk about today, and then I just want to reflect on maybe what that means for us still. If you've never read The Metamorphosis, maybe stop this video and then go read it. It's very short. And by very short, I mean it'll take you a night or two. But spoilers ahead, just so you're mostly aware. The story follows Gregor Samsa, who is a traveling salesman who turns into a bug one morning. His largest concern is that he's not going to make it to work on time. We learn quickly that through the picture on the wall and the anger and resentment that Gregor feels towards his boss, that he's been put into a hardship by his family, falling into debt. And for better or for worse, Gregor has sort of turned into the breadwinner for the family. As the story progresses, we learn that Gregor has sort of taken on this role himself mentally, and that it's not just the system that's pushing him, although the system is really gross and Gregor is completely vindicated. When he's just a little bit late from work, the head boss comes and checks on him. So all of his fears and pressures and focuses on work are completely valid. Nevertheless, it's Gregor's continuing wanting to meet that system instead of fighting back or conceding. He embellishes it. He pushes it. He tries to be the best salesman. He tries to be even better with his train schedule. He lives a lonely life where his only real purpose is work. But that doesn't mean that Kafka doesn't give us a sense of Gregor's humanity, which of course is ironic and uncanny considering he's a bug while describing all of this to us. But Gregor is clearly interested in his sister Greet, who honestly becomes sort of the focus of the story the longer you go. He wants his sister to go to music school, and he obsesses and longs for her to play music at a beautiful level. Equally, when he describes when the family went down, Gregor felt pride and joy about what he could provide for his family. So, like I was getting at before, it's not purely that Gregor has to step in and the system is sort of crushing him with this lonely job that's isolating with this horrific boss that looks down on him to the point where he feels like a bug, and there's the metaphor that Kafka turns literal. No, it's that Gregor feels that system and then embraces it in some way. Nevertheless, for Gregor, he expresses very clearly early on, the second page really, that once he's done paying off his family's debt, which seems to be, in his mind, another 5 to 6 years, that he's going to tell his boss really how he feels, and he's going to move along. That's important for us to know. One, it sets up the stakes for Gregor from the get-go. As if being a bug is large enough stakes, we get his human stakes. We know that he cares and that he's got a hurdle in his way, and any time that we can sense a hurdle for a character, it's not uncommon for us to then want them to proceed over that hurdle. Something really interesting that struck me on this reading. And when I say this reading, we just taught it, and every time I teach it, I learn something new. And this time, something really stuck with me. When we think about this image that David Foster Wallace gives us of trying to get to the other side of the room, we can apply this to the metamorphosis very easily. For Gregor, he's in a room. Literally, he's trapped in his bedroom, which is his whole other problem, where he dreams of making the money to send his sister to school and then getting out. Basically, if we keep it within the familial unit, what it would mean for Gregor to go from caretaker to being taken care of. Now, don't mishear me on this next part. I understand that Gregor probably didn't foresee himself turning into a bug, nor would this have been the path that he'd chosen for himself. He was clearly too practical for that. But once Gregor is a bug, and his sister begins to take care of him, much more so than the other members of the family, in a weird way, Gregor is taken care of. What I mean is, his ultimate goal was to finish work and then move along, switching his role from breadwinner to some sort of completion of that task. Well, he just sort of retired early. Like I said, don't mishear me, but in a way, Gregor gets outside of the room that he wanted to get out of. The pain and tragedy, of course, that we feel reading the story is that Gregor is unwilling to accept that. And hey, maybe that's a large dose of practicality from Kafka. Of course, if we all turned into a bug, we'd react our own ways. That's the tragedy, is that Gregor himself refuses to be taken care of. He brews resentment towards his sister. He brews anger. He reminisces on when he was in charge. And while teaching the story this year, I found myself so struck by this image from David Foster Wallace of trying to get out of the door, and then realizing that there's a reading of this book where Gregor gets what he wants in some way. And I never thought about it this way, and you gotta stretch a little bit to get there with me. But I hope you understand sort of what I'm getting at. And I certainly think there are ramifications for us to maybe think about. For one, it certainly makes me think about what room I'm in and what room I want to get to. Second, it makes me think about grass is greener as a mentality, and in a time where it's so easy to wonder about what could be and to wonder about how we're doing in comparison to others due to the access we have to each other. What a poignant image to put forward, this idea of the door and us trying to get through it. Keeping that within the metamorphosis, what a torturous image, that the pain that Gregor is experiencing and trying to escape is coming from his own childhood bedroom. And it just makes me wonder what things we carry from deep within us from when we were young, about where we started and where we want to get to. And ultimately, if we're following this message from David Foster Wallace's sort of reading of Kafka, what are we not noticing that we already have? I'm not really sure myself, but it stuck with me. And so maybe that's something to think about. What are we to do when we want to escape and get somewhere so badly? And are we missing something in the process? Or we can just laugh because Gregor is a bug and take the story at a very literal level, which maybe is what Franz Kafka wanted all along.